Welcome to another episode of 50 Shades of Shilamita. Today, I have a very special episode for you. It was a series that I recorded for a summit that I was in, and it is super powerful and it is super potent. And I wanted to bring it to you today for you to open up your field of potentiality and possibility, because in my world, as my mentor Melanie always says, the sky isn't even the limit. So when we really know and understand that everything is possible for us, everything is happening because it is responding to the energy that we are outputting, the stuff that we are manifesting, and to really know and understand that we are manifesting all of the time. So for those of you that are new to the world of manifesting, manifesting is creation, it is attraction, it is living out our every desire. And in the midst of getting to our manifestations, we work on being the best possible human that we can be. And when we choose that route, we make that intention that I'm going to be the best human I can possibly be, then the entire universe starts to move and shift so that you can get everything that you desire. So I really hope that you enjoy this next hour with me. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So be sure to comment below. Find me on social media, and I will see you again soon.
So for everybody that is signing on, my name is Shilamita. Welcome. I am having a glass of rosé. I am sitting in the airport right now, waiting for my flight to Nashville, New Jersey, where I am going to speak on a very big stage this weekend. And it is just like so absolutely appropriate that I'm doing this talk today about the potentiality with gratitude. And I'm sitting at the airport right now on my way to a speaking event. I'm heading to Nashville, which I'm so excited. I am the queen of country music. I've loved country music since I was 15, so it's definitely been on my bucket list to go to Nashville for a very long time. And when I signed up to do this chat, I had no idea that I was leaving today. But I have the best fiance in the world. And I said, listen, I don't want to cancel the live. It's already scheduled. Will you take me to the airport early and help me find a place where I could do this live? And of course, he's the best man in the world. And he always makes my potentiality field expand. So here I am in the American Express lounge. I've never seen a lounge like this before that has little phone rooms, but this is the whole point of this series because the potentiality of life is so incredible. And when you put the intention into your thinking and into your energy and into your desires, it's like the world perfectly orchestrates the most beautiful moments for you, right? Most of you know Melanie and Layer. The reason why we are here is because my Matrix sisters and we wanted to give back some of the amazingness that we experienced together. And in doing so, it's like this perfect moment was set up for me today. You know, we had the best ride to the airport. We got here, there were smiling faces everywhere. We walk into the lounge and the people were like dancing. I mean, it was just such a beautiful experience. And I'm like, of course it is, because I'm going to do a talk about the potentiality of gratitude. So for all of you that are just signing on, welcome. My name is Shilamita. I live in Montvale, New Jersey. I've lived here for most of my life. I was born in Russia, in the Ukraine. I came over here when I was 6 months old, so I grew up with an immigrant family. I think it's important for you to understand the context of my life, to understand why it's so exciting that I'm sitting in this lounge, in the American Express lounge at the airport right now. When I was 17 years old, my father was diagnosed with cancer. My 20s were an up and down, upside down ride. I went in the direction of drugs, alcohol, sex, you name it. I was looking for love and affection in all the wrong places. By the time I was 23, I was actually a six-figure earner, so making money wasn't hard for me. But for some reason, by the time I was 26, I ended up a single mom on food stamps in the most rock bottom of rock bottoms that could could have happened for me. And it's really quite interesting when I go back now, because as such a spiritual being, I understand every pivot moment that has happened over the course of the last 18 years. So I'm so grateful. When I was 23 years old, I found Kabbalah, and Kabbalah put me on a spiritual path. So I really started to understand that life was not happening to me. Life was happening because I was creating it. And that was a really hard concept to grasp, right? Because if you're not living your best life, you're like, I didn't create this shit. That's bullshit, right? Sorry if there's kids watching. I like to curse, and I will try not to because you guys are new, but that's just me. So in my 20s, my father has cancer. He was given 2 years to live. He ended up living 9. In the 9 years, my mom ends up getting breast cancer 2 times. So my whole 17 to 27 was worrying about my authoritative figures were going to leave me, right? Obviously, then I didn't understand what I know now, and I'm going to speak in ways that are going to explain that time much more wisdom like than what I actually lived through in those times, right? Because when we're living through hard times, it's really hard to see beyond that. So my father passes away. I break up with my boyfriend at the time, 2.5 months later. 3 months later, I find out that I'm 8 weeks pregnant with his baby. My life went into a whirlwind because I didn't even want to live at this point, right? I had no coping skills. I didn't know how to seek out help. I turned to drugs and alcohol, which we all know that's not a way to help, right? And so I end up with a child, which I, at one point in my 20s, told my mom that I was never going to have children, but the universe and Mikey had a very different plan for me. I got back together with my ex to try to create a family unit, but as we know, when we break up with somebody, it's usually a finale. And so at 18 months, the actual finale happened and I broke away. And it was this spiritual world of Kabbalah and trying to be the best person that I could be every single day. That was my one goal. My one goal was I just wanted to be the best person that I could be every single day. And that is my mantra always. And back then, this is when the world of Facebook had just started. It was hard to live in that mantra because I was always looking at what other people had, right? I'm a single mom living on food stamps. At some point in my life, I had already made 6 figures. So I understood a little bit what the taste of luxury was. I didn't grow up like that. I grew up in an immigrant family. So my perception of what was, I thought that rich people, there was only so much money in the world that got divided amongst the rich. And I thought that because I was an immigrant here, that I was never supposed to be that rich person. But in my desires, as I was living on food stamps with nothing, I would lay in my bed and I would just feel it so deep in my soul that I was meant for more, that I was supposed to live a much different life than the life that I was living now. And I would lay in my bed at night when my son was sleeping and I would just imagine myself on beautiful islands, traveling the world, with a man who would come pick me up in a limo and take me to all these places. And I would literally lay in my bed and I would have visions of these things, right? And one day I had a new friend show up at my house and she was from Australia and we were chit-chatting and all of a sudden she looked at me and she's like, "You're really negative." And I was like, "Okay." She's like, "And you complain a lot." So I'm like 27, 28 years old. I've never had anybody speak to me like this before. And like, what do you do? Like, what do you, I didn't even know what to say. I think I might have been silenced in that moment, which is really hard because I really love to talk. But she started asking me questions like, have you ever heard of the law of attraction? Have you ever heard of the secret? Do you understand that like attracts like? And I was like, wait a second. I'm like, I've definitely heard of this before. So at 21, straight out of college, so I'm an entrepreneur when I'm 21. I have this entrepreneurial spirit. I start selling party light candles. Anybody remember party light candles? Have you guys ever heard of this? It was one of those multi-level $1 million companies, right? So I end up at their yearly convention or whatever, and I'm sitting at lunch with some woman, and she says to me, "You really need to learn about the law of attraction." So I said, okay, I order this law of attraction book. It comes to my house. I read 3 pages and I was like, this is boring AF. There was no pictures inside. I put it on my shelf and I never looked back, right? So now this is 7 years later. She now says to me, have you ever heard of the law of attraction? Yes, I've heard of the law of attraction. I actually have this book on my bookshelf. So then she says to me, have you ever heard of The Secret? I said, yes, I heard of The Secret. I said, but I don't really like to read, right? So now the excuses start coming out. I don't really like to read. So she was like, okay, well, why don't you get the CD set? Wouldn't you know it, I actually had the CD set and it was sitting right in my dining room, which was also my massage room. At the time, I was a massage therapist. And I'm like, I don't listen to things on CD. So she was like, rent the movie. She's like, my God, I've never heard of anybody who's had so many excuses, right? So this one girlfriend of mine was so mind blowing for me, right? And some of you are probably listening like, oh my God, if anybody ever talked to me that way, you would have shut down, right? And I think in the moment I was shutting down, but at the time I was also cultivating my affirmations. And in my affirmations, I had said to the universe, please help to put me on my path. I am ready. I am open to listening. I am open to the messages. I am open to receiving. So I started doing affirmation work before I even really understood what the law of attraction was. And here the universe delivers me the package. Here is the package. And now looking back, I had all of this information since I was 21 years old. The law of attraction was there. Do you know how fast I read that book that had no pictures that I didn't like to read after that day? I think it took me 3 days to read that book. I immediately ordered The Secret on DVD. I started watching it and I was like, I've got nothing else to lose. I was living as a single mom on food stamps. It was the most humiliating time in my life. For those of you that live in the United States of America, if you've never experienced government assistance, I wish that you never have to experience government assistance. Going from a 6-figure salary, showing up to one of these government offices, being spoken to like you were inhumane. Not one person in the room with me spoke English. So it was like even like amazing that I even figured out that there were these programs that were available to me. I absolutely hated it. It was the worst time ever for me, but it was a stepping stone that I needed to go through because now I understand that I had ancestral wounds that I needed to heal, right? I made 6 figures as a very young human being. And then I lost it all. It was like I needed to lose it all in order to understand later in life how I was going to heal ancestral lineage for years and years and years. And then what ended up happening, the universe connected me with an old friend from high school. And this friend invited me to come to his house, and I met his wife, and I couldn't stand her the first night that I met her. She was super socially awkward, and like I was having a really hard time connecting her. And the next day, she friends me on Facebook. We're going back now 12 years when the first world of Facebook started, where I actually knew every single people on my friends list. And I'm like, why is this girl friending me on Facebook? And she says to me, she started asking me a lot of questions about my massage business. Like, where are you working? When are you going to be working? When are you doing this? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why is this girl asking me so many questions? So they end up inviting me to their house for a birthday party. I go. At the time, I was actually an event planner and I was just about to graduate from massage school. So she says to me at this party she invites me to, she asks me to come work for her. It was such a grand gesture from her because she was willing to pay me $1 a minute. And at this point, I'm living on food stamps. So getting $1 a minute to do massage was incredible money for me. Like if I massaged someone for 60 minutes, that was $60, right? Like that was a lot of money for me when I was living on food stamps. So what I've learned along this process and along this way is all of these little bits of information, when you lower the ego and you allow for yourself to open up to the information, that's when the magic starts to happen, right? I opened myself up to this girlfriend who totally destroyed my ego in this conversation, but then it opened me up to my friend who connects me to this woman who now tells me that I need to go to acupuncture school. One day, she comes to my house. I had surgery the day before. She does acupuncture on me, and she's laying in my bed now. The same girl that I couldn't stand, right? I had to let my ego down to allow for her to come in. Well, ends up, the reason why she was so socially awkward is because she was like my soul sister. She was so woo, and nobody understood her. So, like, she had a really hard time connecting to people. And here she's laying in my bed, and all of a sudden, we're talking about like past lives and spiritual journeys and I'm like, oh my god, like this girl is like my soul sister, right? At this time, I'm 30 years old. I never met any other human being who was into any of this woo spiritual stuff. Like, people just thought I was crazy. And so the wind blew me to acupuncture school, and I have spent the last 10 plus years of my life as a licensed acupuncturist, holistic healer. The day I walked into acupuncture school, I walked into acupuncture school with a Ziploc filled with candy from the dollar store. And everybody looked at me like I had 25 heads, like I was so nuts for even thinking of bringing this crap, right? But I didn't understand that it was crap at the time. I was eating Subway sandwiches to survive. I've been gluten free now for 10 years. It's like the paradigm and the shift, right? So when I tell you that I'm sitting here at the American Express Lounge in my own private room with champagne, waiting to get on a first class flight to go to Nashville, to go step up on a stage in front of the biggest medical freedom community across the US, it is like the paradigm of how much your life can shift in 10 years is so mind blowing. It's so incredible. And how did all of this happen? It all happened with gratitude. Because when that friend pointed me in the direction of the law of attraction, and then I watched The Secret, and The Secret said, you have to be grateful. You have to make a vision board. You have to have a gratitude journal, right? And I was so rock bottom at that point that I was like, who cares? Like, let me just try this. Like, what's going to happen if I try it, right? So I bought my first gratitude journal and I started writing in it. And if you go back and you look at it now, it's like every day there was 2 or 3 sentences on a page. Like, I literally had no idea what to be grateful for because my life felt so miserable. I felt like I just had nothing to live for, right? I know that some of you who are suffering with depression and anxiety can relate to this. Like, we have to hit rock bottom. I had to hit rock bottom to really understand how much I needed to live with, right? In my manifestation, I manifested a soulmate who loves luxury beyond, right? I could live with so much less than him, but part of my manifestation, part of my ancestral healing was I needed to manifest a partner who was going to be able to unfold the levels of luxury, right? If you guys were in Cash or Exponential Wealth, I forget, Melanie Ann Layer, for those of you that don't know, our mentor, she spoke about how she was in Hawaii and she had Skechers sneakers on. And all the women walked into the elevator smelling like Italian leather. And I so connected to her in that moment because I'm like the bargain queen, right? Like, I can have a $500 bag and somebody can compliment on it and I will be like, thanks, right? But if I bought a bag for like $10 and you comment on it, it is like, I'm like a lightning cracker. I just love finding a great deal. And then I love when other people love my great deals, right? But this point in my life, I'm really trying to get uncomfortable with the things that I'm uncomfortable with, which is, this like lap of luxury and how to like really live in the next level, right? If we are trying to attract things bigger than who we are and bigger than what we desire, how do we get that way if we're not able to look past the sales rack, right? It's like I instantly go to a website and I instantly go to the sales rack. It's like ingrained in my DNA. So how did I shift all of this? It all shifted with gratitude. That first journal was so hard for me. I had a really hard time sitting down and being grateful. So I started being grateful with my son. At the time, he was about 2 years old. And every single night, I was like, Mikey, let's be grateful for things today. He'd be like, okay, mommy, right? Because it was like a few more minutes that he got to stay up. It was this beautiful moment. And we would start being grateful for things. And then eventually I started manifesting, right? Do you guys know what manifesting is? The word manifesting actually means creating. And the law of attraction, that book that I didn't want to read, what that book says is that like attracts like, right? So if you're putting out a positive vibration, you're going to get a positive vibration in return. But if you're putting out a negative vibration, you're going to get a negative vibration in return. So we left to come to the airport. We're so happy. We were so grateful in the car, like days that we're going to spend away from the kids, and we're going to Nashville. We're going to listen to music, right? Like we just had this whole vibe going that when we arrived to the airport, that vibe continued, right? It was like we were greeted with smiles. People were dancing. Like it's like stuff that doesn't normally happen because we're cultivating this energy. So what happened was doing this practice with my 2-year-old allowed for me to do this practice every single day. Because the best part about children is children are repetitive. They like to be on repeat. They like when we do things over and over again with them. So on nights that I was depressed or on nights that I was, having a hard time, Mikey would say, hey, mommy, we forgot to be grateful. And when I started really understanding the energy of it, there would be times that I couldn't pay my rent and I would sit down with my gratitude journal and I'd be like, I'm so grateful that I have new clients that come in tomorrow. I'm so grateful that people start texting me for appointments. I'm so grateful that new opportunities come my way. And I will tell you within 24 hours every time, because I don't know if you guys feel it, but I think you can feel it when I close my eyes and I connect. You can feel it in my core. It's like I'm connecting to that feeling. I feel it in my bones when I say a new client is going to text me, and it happens, right? Like how many times have you been synchronized with a friend where you think of them and you look at your phone and they text you or they call you, right? All of that is not a coincidence. And what I've learned over the course of this year of being in the AFE is like, before it was like, oh, I would like tickle the universe, right? And I would play around and stuff would happen and it was like magic, right? Like everything just seemed like magic. But the truth is I'm living in my own magic. I'm living in the thoughts of my past. I'm living in the journaling. I'm living in that feeling. This moment right now, you are creating your future. Melanie says that 95% of the time we are operating in autopilot. So we are just operating in thought, right? We're not aware and conscious. Right now watching this, you are aware, right? You are aware, you are conscious, you are thinking. I'm making your mind think. Some of you might be triggered as fuck, right? Like, this girl's getting on a first class flight, right? Like, why is she talking about that? But I'm talking about it because I want you to understand the potentiality of that, right? There was a time that I didn't think that I would ever sit in first class. I would always walk right by those people, right? And be like wishing for an upgrade. And I don't wish for an upgrade anymore. I buy a first class ticket. Sometimes I don't when I travel with my team, and I regret that. But now my goal is to travel with my team all in first class because I run retreats for women and I want them to experience the same exact thing that I get to experience, right? And it didn't all happen right away. So a lot of times you're coming into this coaching world and the personal development world and you're watching all of these people and they're like, I took a bath and I made $10,000 and, I went for a walk and my PayPal pinged 500 times, right? Well, yes, that's wonderful. And that does happen, but it doesn't happen right away. So when you're sitting here and you're like, why aren't I there yet? I will tell you that my biggest mistake that I made in all of these years is wanting it and wanting it now. Wanting it and wanting it now, right? Because wanting it and wanting it now made me miss most of the things that I manifested. I missed all of these beautiful things and all of these beautiful moments because I was busy chasing the next moment. I was busy wanting the next thing. My acupuncture practice crossed $500,000 in 2019. I didn't even anchor that in. I didn't even understand that until it was all gone in 2020, right? And now in 2021, I'm like, wow, you can bring it all in, but can you hold it all? Or is your drain open and you're allowing for it to all go away? Because that's what I've been doing all these years. The universe has been giving me, handing it to me on a silver platter. And as you're watching this, after this is done, you're going to go back through the series of your life and you're going to be like, oh, that was a sign and that was a push and I should have done that, right? The one beautiful thing about my life is I will never say should have. I never say should have. I go all in all the time, no matter what. With the naked offer, it took me a while to get into that because there was so much healing that I needed to do with that. But as soon as the healing was done, I was all in. And my fiance was like, no, you're closing your acupuncture practice. I just closed my acupuncture practice. I had a beautiful wellness center that took a nosedive during COVID. And I had the option of staying and rebuilding, and I knew that I could do it. But the truth is that I want to make impact in a really massive way. And treating patients one to one was just not doing it for me anymore. And I just knew that there was something different. But to close my practice after 10 years, knowing that I make multiple six figures a year, it is like I'm 42 years old starting over like a little baby. And I love it because I know that fear mixed with excitement is magic waiting to happen. It's just always happened in my life that way. It never fails. So all those years ago when I was on food stamps, I created my first vision board. And on that vision board, I wanted to be a motivational speaker. I wanted to be an author. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to recreate the education system. And I am literally like I'm smirking as I'm saying this because I'm literally living the life that I wrote out on this vision board. And when I made that first vision board, it seemed so impossible and so far out of my reach. I never thought that that would actually happen to me. And then in 2017, I wrote my first best-selling book. It wasn't just a book, it was a journal called 31 Days of Gratitude, Create the Life You Desire, because gratitude has literally changed every ounce of my being. When my father first passed away, I grieved for years. For years, a birthday good and goodbye, a holiday. I grieved so bad. And then I started learning about gratitude. And every time I would start grieving, I would start being grateful for the dad that I had. And I would start being grateful that my dad loved me and that I was daddy's little girl. And I would just be so grateful for so many things. And then I would be grateful that I wasn't the one that had the daddy who left her. And then I would be grateful that I wasn't the one that had the daddy that beat her. And then I would be grateful, right? And I shifted my grief, which was real and valid, right? Like you have every right to grieve, but I shifted that grief into others who didn't get to experience what I got to experience with my father. And that took me out of the grief. And I cry now because it's so emotional, but my dad's been gone now for 15 years, and birthdays go by and holidays go by, and I don't cry anymore because I appreciate the love. And in my spiritual work, I really understand what his life was all about and why his life was cut short. And that's like a story for another day. If any of you guys are into past life regressions, I have like killer past life regression stories for you. But that little journal that I wrote in 2017, the reason why I did that is because I knew what it was like to tell somebody, I want you to be grateful, but you feel like you have nothing to be grateful for, you know? When I lived in that little 2-bedroom apartment with my son as a single mom, like yearning for more, like I deserve more than this. Like I didn't come to this life for this. Like I just knew that there was more. And I was grateful for it. I was grateful. I was grateful for the electricity, and I started being grateful that I had clean water, and I was grateful that my laundry was clean, and I just started being grateful. And every time I was grateful, something amazing would happen for me. It was like every single time, like clockwork. And then I manifest the greatest man of all time. I have the most beautiful love story of all time. But my man came with a wife. it was like I was in the spiritual high, committing the biggest sin ever of time. Talk about duality. Talk about having to live with all of the things all at once. We've been together almost 11 years. I think about some of the things we live through now, and I can't even imagine being able to handle those things then. So, everything that you desire is yours. It's coming, it's on its way to you. It's just, can you handle it, right? Like, I wouldn't have been able to handle making $500,000 coming right off of food stamps. It was an adjustment for me. First time the man took me out to dinner and I saw the check, it was like $400. I literally started to have a panic attack. How did I just eat dinner for $400? How does that even happen? I could buy my son and me dinner, breakfast, lunch for an entire month for $400. And if this conversation is triggering you, then that means that this is activating you, that you desire for more and your more is coming. But you have to be able to work through this stuff. You have to be able to look at me and be like, hey, I'm really happy for her and I know that mine is coming. And in the meantime of mine coming, I'm going to be the best human being that I can be. I'm not going to try to outdo my sister, my brother, my best friend. I'm not going to try to outdo anybody. I'm just going to try to outdo myself. When you start focusing inward and focusing on your future, like what you desire, it changes everything for you because you stop focusing on what you can't have and what's out of your reach and you start focusing on believing. And that's why we came together to do this potentiality series for you, to show you that we are women that walk the same line as you. We've been through the things that you've been through, right? For some of you, you're going through grief. For some of you, you're going through divorce. For some of you, you're going through like amazing things in your life, right? Like, but you're so happy and nobody around you is happy and you can't celebrate that. And that's a really crappy place to be. It really is. One of my first mentors that I adored and loved, we spent hours talking about how I felt that most of my true relationships were people that I bought. It was like people that I paid for, right? Like once I started making money, I was able to pay for staff, right? And those relationships I started cultivating were such beautiful relationships, but it would make me feel lonely because I would feel like I was always paying for somebody. And then that same mentor ends up with me in the Naked Offer, the channel. And Melanie, the other night on our call, says how she wants us to be friends. She wants us to cultivate these beautiful friendships and relationships. And all of these years, I always thought that I was chasing after the money, the impact, right? Obviously, in my work, I'm all about the impact, but then there's the money piece. But really, I want the relationships. I want the love. I want to be able to like connect with other human beings and have people think about me throughout their day and have people that like send me flowers and like it's just such a beautiful way of living and we all get to live this way, you know? The potentiality of that is so great, but you have to know that you desire it. That's where the missing link is, right? It's like in exponential wealth, I started to get triggered over the women who bought the Naked Offer who were getting roses, right? For those of you that don't understand what I'm talking about, I'm sorry, but like the stories are clear. The roses that people were getting started to trigger me. And I was in Costa Rica. And if you saw my pictures from Costa Rica, I also got a beautiful surprise rose experience. But my mentor buying roses for other people was very triggering for me. And it ended up being such a healing moment because in this world that we play in this field of potentiality, we're allowed to have these conversations where I came into the group and I was allowed to write a post that said, I'm being triggered by you guys getting flowers right now. And you know what the sisters did? They came in and they helped me. And they told me to journal and they told me to work through stuff. And the stuff that I worked through over the next 2 years was like so mind blowing. I couldn't believe it. Like a lot of the things from when I was a child, I just desperately wanted to receive. I considered myself to be a slut. It is like it's a joke in my relationship. Thank God my lover approves of my slutty old ways. But I wasn't actually a slut. Now I understand that I wasn't a slut. I was just trying to receive. I desperately wanted to receive love. So I was looking for love from anybody that would give it to me. Society called me a slut, but I was just like trying to heal my heart. Right. And it's like such a beautiful thing to be an adult now and like to come on live video and be like, hey, I was a slut back in the day, and like not care what you think about me, because it's like it was a part of who I am as a human being. And now I understand why I was like that. I talk about sex a lot in these private groups. I am like on this sexual journey now. Like, I don't know, it's like it's all clicking to me, like a lot of the things is like I'm having like some of the deepest conversations I've ever had with my fiance. I walk into the bathroom, we hang out in our bathroom a lot. It's the only place we hide from our kids. We have 5 kids, by the way, between the both of us. I am a mom of 3, and then I have 2 bonus kids. So I had 1, and then we ended up having 2 together, and then we have 5 boys all together. So that is my little life in a nutshell. Let me go back and read some of your comments. Let me see what you guys are talking about in here. All right, that's where I got distracted. You guys are so good. I have a bunch of party light candles for my friends. See, party light. They made like the most magical Christmases, and I really loved it. The party light business. From there, I ended up opening up a bridal store called The Occasional Favor, where I sold invitations and favors and headpieces for weddings. Then from there, I went on to working as a franchise director. That's where I made my 6 figures. I sold 150 franchises in 14 months. So when you guys see me in all these groups talking about my money mindset issues, when I sell for somebody else, I will make millions of dollars, no problem. When I try to sell myself, it's like fizzle. It all fizzles down. But if I'm trying to sell somebody else, I am like the best at sales. It's incredible. I love it. When she received the gift, her memory returned. Fabulous magic. Yes. What was the book? Which book? I talked about The Law of Attraction. I talked about The Secret. Those 2 books were pivotal in my life. Another book that was pivotal, if you guys want to go grab one, The Spiritual Rules of Success from Deepak Chopra. If you are not a reader, that he's got like a little pocket version. I am like the Cliff Notes version of everything. If you want to pick up my books, mine is 31 Days of Gratitude, Create the Life You Desire. That is the interactive journal. That book is life-changing. It's changed thousands of lives so far. I'm actually rewriting it right now. I'm very excited about this. My second book is called From Food Stamps to First Class. It kind of tells the story and how I work through a lot of the stuff. And then my third book is actually a children's book that is called I Am Grateful for My Life. And that is what I'm going to, this weekend, I'm going to debut the new book. And it's for the medical freedom community. And it's all about like children and stuff. So I bring in a different pizzazz into, everybody's talking about health and all the things. And then I could talk about that stuff all day long too. As an acupuncturist, I am a holistic healer. I do everything naturally. I haven't used meds in years. If I have to use Motrin, it makes me high. It's like really wild because I used to do a lot of drugs. So the fact that Motrin makes me high now, but that's just how I've cleaned out my body. I am a very big proponent of all natural things. So if you guys stay in my world, you'll see that. Do you still have that friend? No, she actually moved back to Australia. She was from Australia. Every once in a while, we do check in with one another. But I call her my earth angel. I talk about her in my book. So yeah, I love her. Government assistance can be so humiliating. Totally. And I know that a lot of people are about to live on government assistance right now, right? We're living through a time where a lot of people are going to feel my story in a very different way at a very different phase of life. So, it's like, just know that if you have to head that way, you're gonna get out of it, right? It's like, it's a stepping stone and it's just a part of life. And some of the stuff that you're experiencing right now is not even your stuff. You're healing things from lineages of ancestors. It's like shit coming from all the ways, right? If you end up friending me on social media, you're gonna see see, I talk about a lot of triggering things because my ancestors, my grandmother lived through the Holocaust. Like what's happening now in this world right now is like, it's like very triggering for me, as I'm sure most of you. I was incredibly grateful for my government assistance after my head injury. I had nothing until I received help. So grateful. Yeah, it was, listen, I'm so grateful for all those years. And I'm so grateful when I went to acupuncture school, I would take my food stamps card and go to Whole Foods. Like, like I learned that Whole Foods takes the, and I started shopping different and I used that money in a very different way. It was like incredible. But yeah, some of the best people are socially awkward. 100%. And by the way, I am actually also very socially awkward. I know this is going to be very hard for you guys to understand, but I realize that I'm actually introverted. And it's like not my personality at all. I know that I seem like I'm very extroverted. I live on a stage, right? But most of the time, you will see me in hibernation. Most of the time, you will see me flat in my bed, like even with my kids. I like can only take so much. I really like to be alone, except for with Ben Lover. I do like to be with him because he lets me do things to him. Like I get to lay on him and like touch him and bother him. I'm on it now. It's my gift of time. It's 100% enough because if you feel it in your core that this is your purpose, the universe is always going to take care of you. That's what I have learned in my whole lifetime is that every single time I ask the universe for money to heal, the universe always delivered to me. When I was living on food stamps, I had a love triangle. It's a great story. I had a love triangle with these two guys that I went to high school with. And then I fell in love with a teacher from acupuncture school who had a girlfriend who ended up breaking up with the girlfriend. And in the midst of the breakup, I make my way in. And he tells me I'm quarantined and I'm not allowed to date anybody. We're going back like 12 years, right? And I'm like, we're not dating. Like, do you want a massage? Because I was a massage therapist at the time. Want a massage teacher that I like? Like, let me rub my hands all over your body. Okay. So we go out to dinner. He's infatuated by me. I'm like the best thing that's ever happened to him. We end up hooking up, right? Because I'm a receiver. I need to be sexually attracted. Okay, whatever. And as I'm laying naked in his bed, he decides to tell me that he's in love with somebody else and she's a student at my school. Dagger in the heart. Who does that? Who does that? Who does that? And then he spent the rest of the night doing all the things that I loved him for. He made me this herbal concoction. He started playing singing bowls for me, right? Like he just like crushed my heart and is now healing me from my crushed heart, right? So after that, I went into a spiral. And I went into a spiral and I made him help me through it because I'm like, you did this to me. You need to help me out of it because I don't know what to do. So he introduced me to his acupuncturist who quarantined him. And I couldn't afford to go see her. So she made a deal for me. And she let me come for $50 a week, which was a lot for me when I was on food stamps. And what ended up happening? It was life-changing, right? Like that acupuncture helped me through this nervous breakdown. It was crazy. By the way, my other earth angel is on this call right now. She is the awkward friend that I was talking about earlier, who's not my awkward friend anymore. I love her so much, and she's the reason why I had my career for the last 10 years, and I am here now. Diana, I love you. So that's actually a great point, Jocelyn. Part of this whole expansion process is to clean up your home. If you were a super messy, chaos kind of person, you definitely want to clean up your space. That was huge for me. When I lived in my little apartment, it was so like, ugh. There was stuff everywhere. And now when I start to get crazy in my head, my outer space starts to become very messy. Every time I go through an up level, I start to clean, right? For those of you that are moms, you know that before the baby comes, you go through a nesting period, right? So it's really important to clean up your space. You don't have to have money to go out and buy a gazillion things. Just start getting rid of stuff. You don't need stuff. You want to open up the energy for more stuff to come to you, right? So you want to start getting rid of stuff. I invite you to do that, especially we're coming into like a fresh new year. And I just know 2022 is going to be so explosive. Like I just know it. And in the car, I was like, 2022, all my dreams come true because this weekend that we're doing in Nashville, they're doing it again in March, and we're planning on taking my kids that weekend. And my dream since the day that I met Ben Lover, which is what I call him Ben Lover. My dream has always been, I used to tell him when I was on food stamps, right? I met this rich man, I'm on food stamps, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, one day and by the way, I was 250 pounds at my heaviest. So when Ben and I met, I was like 190. I was very overweight. Okay. So for those of you that are struggling with weight, this is in your future too. And the more healing I do, the more beautiful I become and the younger I look. It is like mind blowing how this process is happening. But I told him one day I'm going to be famous. One day I'm going to speak on stages. And he just kept saying, you're so hot, you're fertile. Like he just wanted to have more babies. So I'm like, I'm going to be famous. And he's like, no, I'm going to impregnate you and you're going to be home. And I'm like, no, I'm going to be famous. Like, and so part of our growing process was as I did start to become famous, right? Like as I became a best-selling author and as I started speaking on stages, like that was like a big, oh my God, for him, because when he met me, I was nothing, right? And then as our lives unfolded, I started to become somebody and something. And it was huge for those of you that dwell in the male and female energies. Like there was a big shift in energy between us over the 10 years. So when I tell you that I'm so in love with him now, we have like this amazing relationship, just also understand we've been through a lot of really hard stuff, right? So like there's this paradigm of like what you're actually seeing on a news feed about people and what's happening in the background of it too, right? So the clearing out the space is huge. So I'm doing a masterclass on December 14th, all about time. It's called Time Warp because the number one excuse that I hear from people is I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. And time is of the essence. And I have been playing with time recently. It is freaking incredible what you could do in 60 seconds to 120 seconds. I mean, I can't even tell you when you learn to expand time, it's like mind blowing. Patience was my lesson to learn. Oh, yeah. My second son was sent to me to teach me about patience. Yeah. So, when I was on my climb, right? So, like in my story, I met a man who had a lot of money, but I met a man with a wife. So then he went into a 6.5 year divorce. So then I had to work. People's perception was that I never had to work again, but I had to work. Like that was a part of our being able to live the lifestyle that we were able to live. But part of that journey was I had to live through the shame, I had to live through the guilt, I had to live through a lot of that stuff in order to get to where I am now. I don't suggest my relationship to many people. Like I think that the way it played out for us, we are very lucky that it played out this way. I don't think it plays out like this for everybody. So I'm not a proponent of, going and doing things like this. It just happens to be my story. And I think that it's fair to let people know that this is how it happened, because I know that there's a lot of people who are in relationships that they're not happy in. They're in relationships where they are cheating on their partners. They are doing things that is not in their character because they took vows, right? Like people take these vows very seriously, but I don't even know that we were meant to come to this earth to only have this one partner. That's like a whole deep conversation for another day. One of my manifestations also, so my manifestation that's coming true in March that I used to tell him because he wanted me to be fertile was that I would have the babies for him, but then one day he would have to take care of those babies backstage. And he agreed, right? And then I started speaking on stage. He's like, the babies are not coming with us. Like, I'm not doing that. Okay. And so in the car, he agreed in March that the babies are coming with us. So in March, I will be on stage and the lover and the babies will be backstage. So in 2022, all of my dreams are going to come true. I also put it out there. I was going to be a millionaire in 2022. So there's that. You get to a point in your life where like these last couple of weeks, I really started thinking about how like before like $100 to me now is like $10 was to me 10 years ago. Like money just starts to shift and change because money is energy. So the more that you learn, the more that you heal, the more you receive. It's like you could receive the money without the spiritual lessons, but then it's like like you need to have the spirit. Like, I'm so grateful it happened for me this way. Like, I could have easily gone into my relationship and said, I'm not going to work and I'm just going to like live off of this guy. But I wouldn't have learned all the things that I've learned, and we wouldn't have been able to do all the things that we did, you know? So, and it's really important, I feel like, as women to have our own stash, have our own stuff, because I get really nervous when I hear about couples who are married and like women are miserable in their marriage and they don't have their own bank account and they don't have their own money and they don't have anything. So then they're afraid to leave, or they don't want to leave, or they can't leave, right? Because they feel like they're attached to this person for the money. So I really always think it's important for a woman to be able to stand on her own 2 feet. Like, every single one of you has some kind of gift that's payable. Like, you don't have to go out and get a job. Like, you could be crafty and make money off of that, you know? Like, there's a way for you to start a business, and I happen to be magical at that. My first book was supposed to be called 30 Careers by 30 Years Old. You really can be anything you want to be, because I've owned so many businesses and done so many things that, like, the potentiality of that is so grand. It really is. Like, you really can achieve anything in this lifetime. I do. I love life. I've always been like this. I've always been this happy go lucky kind of person. Like, my teachers always used to say when I was a kid that I was happy, but the truth was, like, I was always depressed. Like, but I just had this outer happy that I always had. But now I am genuinely happy. I can tell you that I've never felt so happy, so safe, so like in my body, like, and I'm going through like a really big transition in my life, and it's just, I've gotten to a point where I really get it. I like just really get it, and I've gotten to myself to a level where I attract women who get it like I get it, right? And like this lonely feeling that we feel inside, most of us feel it. So if we could get through that feeling and we can learn how to really communicate to one another as women, like, listen, you said that, but that triggered me. Can we talk about that a little bit more? You know, like, can we work through this trigger together instead of being triggered and then going off and calling your next friend and then talking about her and then, you know, telling the next person and then like creating this whole thing? It's like it's so much easier to just be able to have these beautiful adult conversations. And I'm so grateful to be in this world where I'm able to do that now. I'm going to do a lot of master classes in 2022 on a lot of this different stuff, because, you know, I feel like that's part of my magic, is that I really help people get to the root of where their problem is. And the root of your problem requires different kinds of healings. You know, it's like I've encountered so many healers along the way. And like just on this live alone, there's so many different healers that are here that are doing it from all different angles. You know, like there's all different kinds of healing. Like, for years I was able to heal people with needles with the acupuncture, but now it's finding a different way to heal people, and it's was all about the food and nutrition and learning about all that. That is huge, especially for those of you that are suffering with depression and anxiety. I suffered for that stuff for most of my life, and like now it's so good in my head. It's so I used to have like the voice that wouldn't shut up, and then homeopathy helped that, acupuncture helped, like past life regression, shadow work. I've done akashic healings. I mean, Reiki, you name it, I've done it all. I love it. Beautiful trophy wife. Oh, that, by the way, in my visions, when I would lay in my bed in my 2 bedroom apartment, I would have visions of being an amazing entrepreneur, and I would have visions of being a trophy wife. Like, it was like I just had visions of meeting a really rich man and him wanting to dress me up and buy me lots of diamonds, and it kind of worked out because he loves it. Last night I was packing and I'm like, I'm like, do I have too many clothes? And he was like, no, I don't think you packed too many clothes. And it's like, God, I love you. I love you, right? Because like any other man would have been like, you have too many clothes. But he just knows that it's easier when I bring a lot of clothes. Gotta jump off. Okay, I love you guys too. I'm gonna go grab some lunch before I gotta get on the airplane. This was awesome. Best hour of my day with this conversation. I love you guys. My name is Shilamita. You can find me all over social media. I'm here. I'm open to connecting. My word from 2022 is connection. I hope to see you guys here every single Thursday. We have so many amazing speakers in here. The Matrix Sisters, they are incredible human beings. There's so much inspiration. I love you guys. Have a beautiful day. Be grateful. Cultivate your gratitude. feel the feelings inside, vision yourself wherever you want to be. Stop focusing on what's happening with everybody else and see yourself in your future. I love you. Bye.